Welcome to the Coast of Maine Growing Good podcast. In this episode, I get the honor of interviewing Malia Demers, who was a Food Corps service member for 2 years, and now she works closely and co-run the Maine program alongside Ryan Parker. And in this role, she gets to coach and train current members who are working alongside incredible school staff in schools across the state, as well as support farm and school efforts at the state level. And she's teaching kids. You're going to hear some stories of why she got inspired to garden and to join Food Corps, how she teaches kids and gets them excited about gardening and teaching them life skills and creating gardens and learning experiences that can go on in schools across the state and across the country. Join us. You're going to enjoy it. Malia, thank you for joining us today. And, we work with Food Corps at Coast of Maine on a lot of donations to gardens, which is terrific. You're passionate about Food Corps. But what I wanted to talk to you about first is that initial gardening passion. And you tell this story when you were a kid and your family had a garden and actually harvesting the carrots too soon and what you learned. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. So when I was a kid, I really didn't know everything that went into gardening. And me and my friend were just playing out in the garden. And the garden mostly to me was just like a jungle gym of like really tall sunflowers and just a place to play. And one day we were out there and we decided it would be really fun to harvest all the carrots in one go. And so we brought them over all proud to my mom or brought her to them. And yeah, she was a little upset about us harvesting all the carrots, but she set us up with a hose and a big bucket and had us wash all the carrots, and it definitely taught me and my friend a lesson about all the work that not only went into like planting them and we just plucked them out thinking it was nothing, but also just like the work it takes to wash them and get them ready. And
But this is what I love about this experience is the way that your mother handled it, right? And the way that she handled it actually made you more passionate. You had to do
mm-hmm,
the work. The work is a positive thing. And I
mm-hmm.
think that is a key to gardening and the work that you do with Food Corps is that, it is hard work. Life is hard work. But if you can have a positive attitude toward hard work and I can do anything, even if I do something wrong initially, I can make up for it, right? Isn't that a part of it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Food Corps partners with schools and communities to nourish kids' health, education, and sense of belonging. Our AmeriCorps members serve alongside educators and school nutrition leaders to provide kids with nourishing meals, food education, and culturally affirming experiences with food that celebrate and nurture the whole child. Building on our service program, Food Corps develops leaders, grows networks, and advocates for policy to service of every kid's health and well-being. So I can understand why you're passionate about what you do. Can you talk a little bit about why you work with Food Corps and what you've learned along the way?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I started working with Food Corps because I had just finished up my bachelor's and was looking for an opportunity to do that was a mix of my two primary interests, which had been um, elementary education and just like learning about how much of an amazing equalizer the public school system is, and
Yes.
how if done well, like yeah, children have a place to be all day. They're fed now with like school meals for all. Kids have free
Yes.
meals at school. And I was just like so interested in um, how public education could be, how important it is, and how it could be even better. And I was also taking some food systems courses which had stemmed from just a love of cooking and gardening, but then throughout my studies, just learning more and more about the inequities there and just how not everyone can access the food that they deserve. And so, yeah, Food Corps just kind of came along and I was like, this is perfect. And I got to explore those interests more in Belfast at the elementary school there, talking to kids about what food means to them, their food memories. We've shifted our mission over the years to be one that's about kind of like we want kids to eat more vegetables to
Sure.
one that's much more inclusive of like, well, it matters if the kids like those vegetables, if they are culturally important to them and their families, and their relationship with the veggies matters. So I think we were trying to do in the school in Belfast was just, and Food Corps as a whole, is just have kids have those affirming experiences with food where they're just having
Those
fun.
affirming experiences.
Yeah.
And I will say, as an offshoot, Belfast does an amazing job with their school gardens.
Yeah.
And I think it's Glenn Widmer.
Yeah, Glenn Widmer. So yes, he was my wonderful supervisor, and I actually saw that you interviewed him
Yeah, I did.
a couple years ago.
I
Yeah.
did. He was great. Me personally, my mom was a teacher, my grandmother was a teacher, my sister was a teacher, my daughter was going to be a teacher and actually became a coach. Same thing. So I have a lot of passion for teachers, and the public schools do an amazing job, especially with passionate people like yourself. But there was one story of watching a principal or a
Mm.
teacher with a kid in the garden, calming the child down. And then another story about Brussels sprouts and letting one child have a bite and then everybody having a bite. That's the kind of imprinting and passion that I think causes change in the world. So talk about that.
Yeah, so I mentioned how I saw the principal at my school, Glenn, actually, out in the garden. I could oversee the garden from my office, and one day I was looking out and I saw him walking around with a kid who looked a little disgruntled at the
Yeah,
beginning. And,
sure.
it's like not always the best to go to your principal, but when there's a school garden right outside, it can be, and you're trying to do, I know this school was really focused on trying to do more restorative practices with kids and stuff. And so the garden was just a great landscape for him to be able to do that, to take students, and that it happened more than this one time, but to take students out and have a calming and sensory environment
Yes.
to be able to talk about things. And just, yeah, it's like a, yeah, positive and not overstimulating, but it can be really nice to be able to touch things, smell things, just to kind of help kids get back into their bodies and like help
Yes.
them regulate their emotions again.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of science obviously behind that too. And we know those things work. And then Brussels sprouts. Okay. What
Yes.
happened with the Brussels sprouts?
Okay, and that's a story about the power of kids growing their own food and how that impacts their interest in eating it and just developing a healthy a positive relationship with food. So I was out in the garden doing like a scavenger hunt, or it was something unrelated to Brussels sprouts, but one kindergartner discovered the Brussels sprouts and was obsessed with how they were like these little tiny cabbages, and asked if they could pick one. And I was early enough in my teaching that I kind of like forgot or didn't care that if I let one student have a Brussels sprout,
It's
the
going
whole
to
class
happen.
was gonna
Yeah.
be asking for him. So I just remember the lesson got a little derailed, and then I ended up sending all the kids, like lining them up, and they all had a Brussels sprout in their hand, and we were lining up to go back into the classroom, and they all got to munch on a Brussels sprout, and they were just so happy to do it because it was a new experience. It was in their school garden, and some of them had a, well, I think it was the older kids that had planted them, but it was like in their, in their garden. So they were just jazzed to
Well,
try it.
because that would be an unusual thing that a child would want to eat as a Brussels sprout. Right?
Yeah.
They're not used to it, so like you said, that experience, they grew it, they had a positive experience doing it, they're going to want to do more of it. And obviously, it is great for them.
And that would happen too in the classroom when we would do cooking activities with things that came right out of the garden. And so they'd be excited to try the salad if they picked the lettuce and then got to pass around a ball jar, shaking up the salad dressing and then getting to try it. So yeah, a mix of growing and then getting to taste it. Hands-on exploratory time. So
Okay.
it's funny because it is still, depending on how the school wants to do it, most schools want to keep the garden as it's not recess, it's educational,
Yes.
but it is still fun. So there's a ton of wonder and observation and hands-on stuff that, yeah, it could look like play, but it's also like guided by the teacher to be learning.
You must have some moments where you want to laugh out loud sometimes with kids with what they I mean, you're dealing with little kids. Is there a favorite question or something that was something that really struck you about something your kids said or asked?
Oh, that's a good question. Kids are obsessed with worms and
Yes.
want to collect them and build worm homes and just collect them in a big pile. So it's like, it's just funny. It's not like isolated to one class or one school. It's like that's universal
Every
love,
kid
a
likes to play with
universal
the
love of
worms.
worms.
Yeah. Yeah, and then it opens up the opportunity to talk about worm poop, and that's always fascinating to kids
Absolutely.
too, and talk about, the way the stomachs of the worms work, and suddenly that food is plant available. It's like a prepared meal, right? It's instantly available. It's like the best fertilizer out there. Um,
Absolutely. And getting to talk to kids about sustainability and the, yeah, closing kind of like more closed loop in their food system and like worms. A lot of schools we work with have worm bins
oh
and
yeah.
in the classrooms so the kids can feed their food scraps directly to the worms. And that's a great, I think it's such a good introduction to composting that's like really kid friendly and kid appropriate.
It's kid friendly and you can actually see it happen very quickly, right? I mean,
Yeah.
composting takes a long time and you don't really see it. You got to turn it and there's a smell and all that. With the worms, they're just consuming and excreting, right? And they consume a lot in a short period of time. So it's like kids running home and checking the bin or going to school and they want to check it and they can tell a difference from the day before. I think that's fascinating for a kid,
Mm.
especially with the time going by. And then to be able to think, oh, when I go to throw this banana peel away, this could be worm food, right? Mom, we
Yeah.
should save this. It's a resource. We didn't compost. My parents did a little bit of gardening, but we just basically it was the dump that you went to and you just took
Mm-hmm.
everything into the dump and we just dumped it. So having that education now and really being connected to the earth and your surroundings, that's powerful stuff. Isn't it really super satisfying when a kid says, "Oh, we could do this," right? They come up with an idea on their own. Do you have that experience with them too?
We do, yeah. Kids come up with a lot of really awesome ideas. Like when they learn, sometimes when they learn something really groundbreaking to them, like, composting or worms, they'll want to teach another class about it.
Yeah.
And I've seen that happen a lot, and service members and teachers I work with will help facilitate that, where they'll then take that class to like kind of teach them how to teach a lesson to another grade, and then those kids get to be leaders. And yeah, kids have a lot of great ideas about helping. They really want to they want to help and they want to make positive changes. I've seen kids make like little PSA videos for to show at like community events. Like they,
Yeah.
yeah, it's so awesome if, yeah, teachers can help
Well, that
cultivate that.
that piece of wanting to help, I think that's a powerful experience too. And do you see that with the kid? Have you had kids that Like at first, you must have had kids that didn't know what they were doing or they were reticent. Did the gardening process help bring them out of their shells?
Yeah, yeah. You do see kids who are don't want to get dirty or don't want to touch anything. And then um and sometimes that's fine. Sometimes they don't, and they will draw pictures of the garden or cheer on their friends. Yes, there are kids who I did see growth. I think, like I mentioned before, wanting to become leaders and then wanting to teach their peers about it. Like, I had some fifth graders who they took the kindergartners out and taught them how to play it. So
See,
it's
that's
like,
the best.
yeah.
That's the best. I think that's great. So school gardens, right? And you have a real passion about sustaining school gardens. And you also talked about Food Corps members coming in and getting garden programs started, but then it's up to you. Tell me about that process.
Yeah. So FoodCorps exists in the state to try to support and help resource schools that are ready to build up their school garden and food programs or reignite them. Some have had ones in the past that were led by a champion teacher and that person left or retired or just wants some help. So, like, it's a lot of the schools we partner with already have some amount of programming, they have the desire, and then Food Corps is there to, or comes in, and we talk to lots of stakeholders in the school. We come up with a plan for how the school wants to best use the service member, and then just try to fill in gaps and get the school to a place where they don't need Food Corps anymore. And we call that graduation. So school is with Food Corps for anywhere from our shortest partnership was 2 years. They were like,
We got this.
yeah, they're like, we got this. We don't need you anymore. That was great. But we've also been in schools, like really big districts,
Yeah.
that don't have a lot of resources. We've been in some school districts for like 10 years. We've moved around the district, not stayed in the same school the whole time, but our partnerships, yeah, they vary in length. But we try to go in with talking to the school about how do they want to sustain it after Food Corps is gone. And most of the time they want to hire someone like that will be district funded, either a garden coordinator or a food educator. Like, they doesn't really matter the name, but whatever aspect of the programming the school wants to continue doing. We really do see it working when the school hires a full-time staff to take over the program, whether it's for one school or for a few schools.
Talk a little bit about LD 1682.
Yeah,
Look at your
so
face light up. See? Did you see that?
yes, that bill is what I'm talking about. So that bill is another way that so Food Corps has helped to advocate for that at the state level, because it would be another pathway for schools to be able to sustain garden programming without Food Corps. So it's like another way that we're trying to find ways for basically schools to be able to be self-sufficient and not need Food Corps. And so LD 1682 is an act to create the Maine Experiential Education Program. If it gets funded, it would be able to provide schools with some funding to hire a school garden coordinator, outdoor education coordinator, whatever the school needs. It would be kind of like it would provide them funding to cover the person the first year and then sort of like scale back over time as the school is able to get this in their budget in a more permanent way.
So this is exactly what the schools need, and it's LD 1682 and had a great reception. But the bill, whether or not it gets funded, will make or break it. So representatives are deciding whether or not to fund this bill in the next week or so. And one thing you can do as listeners is to contact your representatives and urge them to fund it. So it also helps, right, with the volunteers that come to school. You have a full-time garden coordinator and then the volunteers to make that garden continue through the summer, correct?
Yeah, and that staff person, a school garden coordinator, they become the volunteer coordinator, and they get parents coming in over the summer, and they can apply for grants. They can connect with local nonprofits. So it's like, yeah, having a garden coordinator position is really important for something as dynamic as outdoor learning, and they can make all that money back and more just by getting more resources into the school in the form of volunteers. And it would provide them funding to cover the person the first year and then sort of like scale back over time as the school is able to get this in their budget in a more permanent way.
Food Corps is filling that full-time niche, right? In a
Mm-hmm.
sense, you're
Yeah.
you're teaching them how to do it. You've been with Food Corps for how many years?
About 5 years. I
Yeah.
was a service member for 2 years and then have been staff for about three.
If somebody's listening that's a young person and maybe just got out of college, why Food Corps?
I think Food Corps because it will allow someone to explore a variety of interests and gives, like, it's all about building relationships because you, as a service member, you're working with kids, families, teachers, custodians, cafeteria staff, local nonprofits. So I think it just is an incredible way to learn how to build and deepen relationships in service of a common goal, whatever it is. As a service member, your common goal will be around food education and things like that. But those are really transferable skills too, because that's important in any role.
Yeah, it's important everywhere, and obviously it makes you naturally quick on your feet. I mean, you're doing something, you have to react, get something done. I think it's a more satisfying way to work too. You're moving. There's a positive thing that you're doing. There's difficult tasks at the end of the day. Everybody benefits. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's wonderful. Um, I really thank you for coming on. I'm really excited that Coast to Maine is able to help in a small way, and to be able to also help with the coordination. We communicate with a lot of schools now, and being able to bring Food Corps and other organizations into helping these schools with their school gardens. We're into that all the time. So I really want to thank you for coming on and talking to us.
Yeah, and thank you, and thanks to Coast of Maine for donating to so many school gardens. It's really, really nice for schools who often just kind of take what you can get. You take the old
Mm.
expired seeds, you get the secondhand stuff for the garden program, and then Coast of Maine comes along and they're like, here, you can have 10 bags of our most high quality product. And so that's just a really special treat for schools. And it's great because it's amazing compost, amazing soil, and the
It's
best for
a
kids.
it's a special treat for us too, and especially to work with people like you. So thank you for the work that you do
Mhm.
too.